Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's okay. Hope everyone's had a good weekend and I suppose a decent start to the week. Maybe not, but anyhow, thanks again, everyone, for joining. And I started a poll. We're going to get on to a little discussion about Satoshi. There's a new documentary coming out tonight on HBO, which is, started getting people talking about it again. So I thought, well, why not try and engage with you guys? And your thoughts on who Satoshi may be. Now, unfortunately, with YouTube polls, you can only put 4 options in there. So we've got Hal, we've got Nick, we've got Len, and then the other one is just others. So whoever you think. I almost wasted one on Craig Wright, but I didn't bother with that one there. But if you can, and if you are going down the others, just drop it in the chat, and we'll try and sort of have a general consensus of where things are as we talk through that. With everything else this week, we'll have a look at Bitcoin's price. I sort of made a little promise to myself, I suppose. Last couple of calls, I haven't intended them being particularly bearish as such, but they've always come up with a little bit of a negative connotation to them. I think when you're looking on the shorter time frames, it's just a lot easier to see possibilities for downside than it is to potentially see positive upsides. I'm going to try and change that today. I remain throughout the last few weeks still ultimately bullish on where we are, and I'm going to try and sort of bring that out. Price action at the moment on the smaller time frames may not be helping that, but I'm going to try and stick a bit macro to start off with. Really try and have a look at where we are within the cycle. What we're doing, where we can position ourselves, etc. Yes, later on we will get into altcoins and Bitcoins on the lower time frame just to see what is happening. Try and see how that may impact things, not just this week, but in the weeks to come. Nobody said they can't hear me, which is always a good sign. And hello to everyone already in the chat. Right, let's just jump in if we can. There we go. Okay. So, we are still Bitcoin. You can see, what is this? I don't like this. I don't know what this is. Let's get rid of that. Looks horrible. Sorry. That must just be a new addition because I never have that on any of my charts normally. Let's save that so it never appears again. Okay. So 3-day time frame, Bitcoin, Casper, total market cap, and BitTensor. We're still within that range. And, the more and more we look at it, last week we kind of thought it was there. Most put, are we live yet? That's interesting. I don't know if you can see me, Mo. I am live. Can someone just put in the chat if they think we are live? Or if they don't think we're live, should I say? Just a second. That's kind of odd. Okay, Mo, you're just scaring me there. Thank you. Yep, all right. Perfect. Thanks then. This time last week, we weren't sure whether or not we were bouncing off that upper time frame. As time's gone out, it looks like we are. And I would, unfortunately, have to say, 3-day candle at the moment looking very much like a high test. Only 5 hours to go on that one there. If I was just looking at this, not thinking about something else, kind of feels a bit of a dead cat bounce potentially with a potential move down. And I think that is sort of the underlying thing of where we are. But what I will say, and I'll go into a little bit later on, is, look, we're in a range, 64,000 down to 50,000. That's a pretty big range, I accept. But as long as we continue being in this range, at some stage we're going to be bearish as we fall down to the bottom side of that range. And then we're going to get super bullish as we bounce back up to the top. And that's what we've done for the last 8 months. And we still are, we still feel it. We still get nervous about it and then excited about it. But the reality is, since that all-time high back in, March, so 7 months, I suppose, that's what we've done. Now, we haven't made another all-time high, I completely accept, but we have played out within this range pretty darn well. But that candle, that particular 3-day print at the moment, not liking so much. I'll try and talk about that one a little bit later on. Down in the bottom left, you probably can't see because my face is in the way, but I'm just looking at Casper. Casper shown such strength during this 8-month, 7-month period until now. Now we've lost they're loose trend lines. Don't need to basically hang your hat on those. 3-day time frame, and I've just drawn them just to illustrate where we were looking. But the reality is we have closed below it. We've kind of done a little bit of a close where we're falling back down. Maybe a little bit of weakness there. And, I can't doubt what I see on the charts. If you are still in Casper, which I am, I'm not too nervous necessarily about it. It's not the largest part of my portfolio. But given the strength that it has had over the last 7 months, whenever we see this turnaround, I do believe Casper will continue to fly. But on the shorter time frame, they're not looking the best. We'll dive into that one again a little bit later. Now, Total Market 3, the reason I've started just showing this one is because this is altcoin market, isn't it? And that's where the majority of our portfolios are. And I don't think this one is looking too bad. We had, as we discussed last week, sort of bottoming pattern here. Then we had the breakout of this line. We've come and retested it. We've not lost it. We come back up. Now, what I would say, a bit like Bitcoin, that's a pretty horrendous candle there. But for now, we've retested the previous resistance, now support, and we've climbed out of it. Got to see how this one builds. But for now, there's at least some sort of strength in the altcoin market. AI has run quite well. Meme coins have been running crazily well recently. Maybe that's what's helping lift this up. I'll go through where my portfolio is a little bit later on as well. Let's clear that one up. And then our favorite, the love of most of our lives right now, is BitTensor. And obviously, a couple of weeks ago, we had that huge rise out from 200. We consolidated a little bit around about the low 500 levels for the last couple of weeks. And we've seen that sharp move today up to 680, I think it got to in the early hours of this morning. Has had a bit of a pullback at the moment. And I'm not necessarily, again, too worried about this pullback for now. We kind of had some sort of, it's the 3 days, hard to draw. I'm going to go into more detail later. Kind of had that level here. As long as we stay above that, fine. Even if we were to break back down into this area, I would start to be concerned and maybe look for a sidestep only after we've broken close between 520. Broken close, remember, is what I said there. So there we may then see there's not much here. Now, it's definitely something to bear in mind. I know Simon announced that he'd bought some more BitTensor today. And some of you may feel that you might have also followed that in, bought a little high and it's come back down. But just give it a bit of time at the moment. Hopefully the conversation we're going to move on to a little bit later on in where we are in the macro position might just help you sort of like assess your risk assessment in terms of wanting to take side steps going forward. Let's have a look at a little bit of news first. And I'm not going to spend too much time here. We talked about FTX last week. Just wanted to say that yesterday they went to court to sort of propose their bankruptcy reimbursement plan. The judge has actually now approved that. So we know that that is going to go ahead. But actually the big news out of this particular article was two. One is you're actually only going to get about 119% of whatever your account was at the time it happened, which sounds great. When you think the Bitcoin was valued at 16,000 back there, chances are you're going to get about 20K for every Bitcoin that you owed. Bearing in mind it's now at 63,000, not so good. So certainly a sting in the tail, but for people who thought they weren't going to get anything, I suppose there's some comfort within that. But actually the biggest thing that came out of this article for me is there is actually no date of when these repayments are going to be made. So much like the Mt. Gox kerfuffle, this just feels like it's going to drag out. There'll be speculation upon speculation about when this is going to come. And the $9 billion that's going to be thrown back into the market and just, be eaten away and just take Bitcoin to all new highs. Don't fall for any of that. 9 billion is a drop in the ocean. It's likely not to fall all on one day. And even if it did, Bitcoin, what does Bitcoin do? Let's have a look. On a 24-hour period, it does 30 billion today. So 9 billion is not exactly, it's not to be sniffed at. An extra third going into it on a single day if it were to all be spent. But I don't think it's really going to make a huge wave that everyone will talk about. One of the other things that caught my attention was just crypto adoption. I think we probably still think that we're quite early into the crypto adoption. In our little, area, RT, Discord, everything else, I'm regularly speaking to people who are into crypto. But outside of that, I still have the battles of what's Bitcoin, is in it that scammy internet money or whatever used by drug dealers. That's generally the general consensus. An interesting article came out today just saying that actually about 8% of the world's population are expected to be using cryptocurrencies by next year. It currently sits at about 7.5%. So 8% of the population. I mean, what are we at? 8 billion. So trying to do some quick maths here. What's that, like 750 million people exposed to cryptocurrencies at the moment. So not something necessarily to be sniffed at. And I think it is quite, a sizable step and a development through there. And Simon posted something in Discord, and I asked him to send me the video. And this is BlackRock talking about the digital assets at a conference in Brazil earlier on this month. And this slide sort of stuck out to me, one of many, because on the right-hand side of the slide, you can kind of see actually how crypto is doing, how it's tracking in its early stages compared to both the internet and the mobile phone. And it is actually tracking ahead of both of those. And we think about just how ingrained the internet is into our daily lives. We think about how ingrained the mobile phone is into our daily lives. But you go back to the mid-1990s, I didn't even believe that the internet would last too long. But here we are with it. Matter of fact, sidestep story here, and this is just something completely random. I actually still remember how I believed the internet was going to be a thing. I remember as a kid, showing my age here, there used to be a TV show called Super Ted. And I said to someone, I swear when I was a kid, I remembered what Super Ted's secret magic words were. For those of you who don't know what Super Ted is, he was a teddy bear. When he said his magic words, he turned into a superhero teddy bear. And I can't remember why, but I remembered that you found out what his secret magic words were. Everyone disbelieved it. It was a big secret, never going to happen. And so I searched on the internet and I found the answer that I needed on the internet. Nowadays, could have been considered fake news, but I took it as gospel and that was it. I was hooked on the internet and I knew I could find everything. But if we just look at this chart, we can just see the yellow is where the cryptocurrency compares to the internet and mobile phone. After 15 years, the total million users or users per million were nearly at 1,000. To get to that level for the mobile phone, which was faster, was 20 years, and the internet was 25 years. So we are moving at incredible speed here. We just feel like it's a little bit slow because we are that early, and I think that's a very positive way of looking at it. I saw this slide here, which I thought came from the same conference, but after watching the conference, it didn't. But crypto adoption on par with early internet investment. And you can kind of see it from a bar point of view here. The amount of crypto earners. We are, where the internet was, I suppose, in almost 1999, but where it is in 97, which we still consider to be an early stage of the internet, we're still outstriping that. So again, another positive place for us to be in. Now, it's an interesting presentation. I don't suggest you watch it. It's not 4 hours. It's 5 hours long, but it's not. The bit that you're interested in goes from minute 23 to minute 43. And there's some reasons why, just where we are with, millennials particularly, but Gen Z, not quite Gen Alpha yet. We do just so much more online, whether that be, interacting, working, paying, whatever. So it's natural that we would gravitate towards digital assets. And even in simple things like gaming, although it's not cryptocurrencies, there are like digital currencies you have to use there to buy stuff. And he sort of draws those parallels as to why actually cryptocurrency is probably leaping ahead. Now, again, it's interesting BlackRock are looking at it like this, and they're looking at millennials in particular because they grew up, with the adoption of the digital age, and now they're at a high earning capacity. They're very techno savvy. And I don't think I might be able to fast forward to it. No. Where is it? Here it is here. And on the right-hand side, millennial investors are more likely to hold crypto than stocks and mutual funds. And you can see millennials here, 38%. Even Gen X, though, 28%. Boomers are down at 6%. But look at this. 83% of all millennial millionaires hold crypto. Whereas from the baby boomer point of view, it's only 4%. So that's where their target is at the moment. It's not that they're necessarily leaving baby boomers behind, but they just see that there's a huge opportunity with millennials and then going forward into Gen Z, etc. So I thought it was quite interesting. BlackRock, obviously largest financial institution, trading institution, whatever you want to call it, in the world, and just how they are looking at cryptocurrency. And I couldn't get anything but bullishness from watching that for 20 minutes. This was a company talking about where they see it, how they see it, why it's going to be where it is. They bring out the old, again, where is it? I'll try and The old charts, no, that's not it. Comparing it to, why it's better than gold and fiat and all that. I can't remember where it is now. Here we go. Gold and treasuries and sort of like how they do it. And you can just tell that they see this as the next global asset. And they talk about it in the same kind of environment that we talked about, that hedge against fear, that hedge against inflation, that an asset that in time will be where people run to when they're concerned. Yes, they need to bring the volatility down. And again, he goes into the volatility index and actually how much it is dropping. It's around about 50% on the standard deviation, whereas the S&P is around about 25. He goes into it, talks about it, gives the numbers, but that's so very good kind of thing. And you can't not watch that and just feel incredibly bullish in the long term with Bitcoin. Speaking of Bitcoin, I'm kind of where I wanted to get to, and I put this in the news section. As I mentioned, and again, if you haven't, we'll close the poll in a bit, but there's a little poll as to who you may think Satoshi Nakamoto is. Something's been making the rounds, okay? So 9 p.m., I assume Eastern time, so what's that, 2 a.m. UK time, HBO are releasing a documentary called Money Electric, the Bitcoin Mystery. And it is effectively, I'm sure it won't be solely about this, but they have done some digging and they think they may have been able to identify who the identity of the creator of Bitcoin, or the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto, is. Now, I've not seen it yet, and being in the UK, I actually don't even think this is going to be available to us. We'll have to wait to see when someone like Sky or whatever pick it up, or maybe someone can get it on the VPN. But you sure as hell know, come tomorrow, this is going to be all over crypto Twitter with who at least they think it may be. And look, I'm not saying that this is going to have a lasting impact on the price or whatever, but it's certainly drawing eyeballs towards it, because ultimately one of the biggest mysteries around cryptocurrency or around Bitcoin is the creator. This person that sat on 1 million Bitcoin, $60 billion worth of Bitcoin. And if they're still alive, they've never done anything with it. Fair play to them. And so they think they found some stuff. We've talked about who the potential identity of Satoshi Nakamoto could be in previous Avenger calls. And people have been sort of digesting and digging into this for years. I mean, since 2011 was the last correspondence from Satoshi Nakamoto. So yeah, probably from 2011, people have been trying to find out who it is. I don't know what parallels they're going to draw, what new evidence potentially they have. The trailer has them interviewing some potential candidates. But what is interesting, I think, is just how excited people have got about this. Now, if you go on to Polymarkets, I had it open, I don't anymore. Let's see if I can quickly bring it open. Polymarkets is just a market which just you can bet on anything, absolutely anything. And on here, the hype around this has actually grown to a fever pitch. So who will the HBO documentary identify as Satoshi? Now, the numbers are changing all the time, and there's a large one that's just gone to other, which when you open up, I don't know who it can be. But there's a whole list of names here. But they have sort of put forward, I suppose, from what I can gather in the trailer, like 3 or 4 potential individuals who it could ultimately be. And a few of the names you may well have heard of, some of them you may not have ever heard of. And I'm not here to add my thoughts onto who it may be, but perhaps just for those of us that won't be able to watch the documentary tonight, to sort of run through who some of these people potentially are. And why do I have this one open? So there's Nick Sarabo, but I've got a better thing here. So I've just taken it from this post from Crip Influence, who's sort of gone through some of the candidates for the identity. And as I say, the trailer's here if you want to have a watch of it. So they've sort of featured, it could be Len Sassaman, which we'll talk about in a moment, Hal Finney, Adam Beck, Nick Sarabo, Paul LaRue, David Kleiman, Craig Wright, no, Dorian Nakamoto, my absolute favorite. God, I hope it's him. Weedai, Gavin Anderson, Elon Musk, Jeb McCaleb, Shinshi Mochizuki, don't know there, Gavin Wood, and then they got more. Thankfully, I'm not going to go through all of those. Just some of the more genuine prospects, shall we say. So Paul LaRue, he was someone that was around at the similar time that Bitcoin was in there. He had a passion for cryptocurrency, as it says here. He was arrested at the same time as Satoshi Nakamoto disappeared. So people thought, oh, well, Satoshi Nakamoto is not dead. He's just in prison. And then I love it. And his real full name is Solo Tushi. But again, no hard evidence that it's him, and not many people have really gone onto it. One of the biggest names that's been thrown out there is Hal Finney. So Hal Finney worked with Satoshi Nakamoto. He was the first person to comment on the white paper, and he was also the first person to receive any Bitcoin transfers. So Satoshi disappeared when Hal Finney's illness, Hal Finney has passed away, became known. So people thought that it might well have been him. The reason why I don't necessarily think it's Hal Finney, and a lot of people go on to say this, is there are actual written interactions between Satoshi Nakamoto and Hal Finney. So if they were the same person, he'd ultimately just be talking to himself. But there's a good chance that Hal knew who it was, but unfortunately Hal is no longer alive. Then there's Adam Back. Now, Adam Back actually features... Is it Beck? I always thought it was Beck, but they put it as Back. Anyway, actually features in this documentary. He is alive. Again, he was present at the time of the birth of Bitcoin. He was another person that read the white paper early on, and he helped develop Hashcash, which ultimately featured or became a very important element within Bitcoin. Now, since Adam's alive, he gets asked about this all the time. He has denied that he's Satoshi Nakamoto. So he's either pulling a good con there, or he knows what he's talking about, and he isn't. Then there's Nick Szabo. Apologies for not pronouncing that correctly. So he came up with a similar concept to Bitcoin at a similar time, or a little bit earlier, I suppose, called BitGold, which was talked about. Satoshi actually mentions him. So some people said, well, it's unlikely he mentioned himself, or other people may have sort of led to believe it. You can find anything on Reddit, can't you? That actually he was trying to give clues as to necessarily who he was. Satoshi was not good at legal issues and could not... Oh, what's happened there? Scroll down, here we go. Cannot answer them, but Nick is good at that, so it's unlikely he's the creator of Bitcoin. I think Nick has a background in legal issues. And then the one that everyone has stuck to, and it's probably one that you've not heard the name of, because I don't think it's very well popularized, is a guy called Len Sassaman. This is 23% people seem to think it's him. He is... so when previous candidates, I'll just read what it says here, only had ties to Satoshi, Len may turn out to be the real founder of Bitcoin. Sassaman had been leading cryptographer, had been involved in encryption, and he worked with Hal Finney, the first recipient of BTC. He's done it again. Scroll back up. So Nakamoto stopped appearing on the forum a couple of months before Len's death, and afterwards colleagues paid tribute in block 138725. And this is the block here, and this is the citation of what it was given. Now, Len's wife at the time, she was asked in 2021, and she said that to the best of her knowledge, she did not believe that Len was Satoshi Nakamoto. Now, Len actually committed suicide, I want to say in 2013, not 2011, when Nakamoto stopped engaging. And there's a lot of people that found it very strange because... he left a 12 random word suicide note, which a lot of us know that is a seed phrase. And so a lot of people kind of join the dots there. But again, seed phrase has been 12 words. Or did he leave it at 24? It was one of the two. But seed phrases didn't actually come into be a thing, the 24, the 12, whichever the version he left, until 2015. So, I think it might have just been random connection there. Again, a lot of people are leaning towards, I don't know whether or not people have seen cuts from the HBO documentary, and this is who they are going to lead it to believe. Again, we'll have to wait and see. I know people talk about the likes of Elon Musk, the NSA. Who else was there in the original one? Craig Wright, obviously. A lot of those I'm not too convinced with. And again, I don't really have an opinion. And that's probably where I want to get to, actually. I'll just talk about this gentleman first. This is who I hope it is. Dorian Nakamoto. So poor old Dorian has absolutely nothing to do with Bitcoin. Absolutely nothing whatsoever. He just has a middle name, which is S, and a surname, which is Nakamoto. And he happens to be an engineer. And they are the only connections there is. But this man's life was turned upside down in 2015, 16, whenever it was. Or 2012, sorry. because people saying that he was Satoshi Nakamoto. He'd never even really heard of it. He's gone on to take some sort of fame and success from that because he's written books and everything else. But yeah, I mean, if the guy's expression says it all, this guy ain't it. He doesn't know what you're talking about. I kind of wish it is him. But it gets to the point that I actually wanted to make, and I'll get it off this white screen. Oh, I won't. Can I actually find it? Let's just put the price of Bitcoin on. Does it actually really matter? I kind of hope, this is where it sits for me, that we don't find out. I hope that there is not enough evidence in this documentary to find out who it is, because I actually kind of like that we don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto is. I don't really want a name attached to it in which then people can go and tear them down like we always do with any of our heroes, whether they're alive or dead. Now that we know, or if we do find out that we know with concrete evidence, we are going to tear that person's life to pieces. And I think it's just going to be a bit of a taint on Bitcoin, on cryptocurrency. The whole point of this was a finger to governments, to fiat currency, to it doesn't matter who you are, this can be sent anywhere, used by anyone. And the fact that we don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto is just, epitomizes that. And I just think finding that out is just going to take some of that allure away from Bitcoin. Certainly, in my opinion, I think it will. And so I really hope that this is just, a well-hyped, interesting, I'm sure, documentary, which basically doesn't provide any concrete evidence as to who it may be. Very suggestive, hopefully, that's what will make it interesting, but still leave us with the opportunity to be like, you know what, we're not going to be. And if it is, if they do find out who it is, God, I hope, this sounds sick and sinister, but I just hope it's someone that's no longer alive. Because again, I don't want, imagine if it is someone that's alive, they find out that evidence, and then it's going to be, all about, well, why aren't you moving that $60 billion and everything else? Whereas, fine if we find out who it is and we know they died, you could almost argue, well, that, 5% of the circulating supply is almost certainly gone, because unless they passed on their key to someone. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I sit with it. I don't necessarily think it is an important issue. I as I say, it's good for this week. I'm sure it'll be a very interesting documentary, and as soon as I can, I will watch it. I'm sure I'll have spoilers tomorrow, but it will be interesting nonetheless. But, for us, I don't think it necessarily really matters. You watch now, I say that. They'll name who it is. The price of Bitcoin will dump. But it does kind of feel like, this is something that I could imagine Wall Street want to know. Now they've got involved. They're like, wow, I need to know. Who is it that made this thing? And can we get some answers? Because that's just going to help us sell this investment to people. Whereas, us Bitcoin maxis, retail crypto, whatever, I feel like we're the ones that actually want this to stay a secret. And I hope it does. I really do. But I suppose we'll find out tomorrow. So let's have a look at the poll. We got about 10% on how Vinny, and then we've got kind of a split with Len at 44 and others at 44. I've seen NSA, I've seen Musk. Seems to be probably about it. DARPA potentially. But yeah, we shall wait and see. I'm going to close the poll, but thank you for those that contributed to it there. I'm just glad no one put Craig Wright. I mean, the guy, I don't want to go into him. I don't want to give him any airtime. Just, if you don't know why I don't like him, Google it. He's an idiot. Erjan's put, do you think there could be some silly spikiness when the documentary airs? Maybe. I mean, if it does turn out to be Elon Musk, Dogecoin is flying. Okay. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not staying up to watch Twitter at 2 a.m. to see, what comes out. It might move a little bit, but I shouldn't think so. But hey, what do I know on that one? Just don't know how retail reacts. I suppose it'll be on whoever it is. If it turns out to be Donald Trump again, maybe we see some movement there. Right, let's have a look. I think we've wasted enough time on news and everything else. Let's have a look at some price action. So, Bitcoin. Here we are. Just to say, I don't have access to iBlock anymore because it's a lot of money and I don't really use it often. So I'm just taking my liquidation heat maps from CoinAnk at the moment. So I have slightly changed a few of these on here and I've got rid of some. So Maybe that's cleaning that up a little bit. But this is, yeah, this is the chart you have looked at for 18, 19 months with me. Nothing has necessarily really changed on that one. And right now we're sandwiched, as you can imagine, not only between 2 points of liquidation at 60,000 and 66,000, which makes sense because they're the peaks and the troughs of the recent price action, but we're actually finding ourselves struggling a little bit to try and break the 618 Fibonacci level. And now this fib level looks a bit weird, I appreciate, but I've just shortened it. It actually goes all the way back to March, which is so I can zoom in on the 12-hour chart. So that line does line up with the peak in March, and this goes down to the drop down here, which was August drop. And yeah, we kind of had that, move up. We didn't quite get to the 786. We did make we'll talk about highs and lows in a minute, but we made a new higher high, local one, came back down hard onto the 0.5, a nice good bounce on that. But we've hit the 618, kind of feeling maybe like a bit of a dead cat bounce. And really, I know I will get talking in macro in a second, but we are on this. And I don't think it's particularly too negative to say that maybe there is another move back down to that 60K 0.5 level now that we have lost this. There is some news events that could change that. And so maybe this is just funny business before CPI comes out on Wednesday. Is it Wednesday? Is it tomorrow CPI or is it Thursday? I should have all this stuff ready to go. It is, so it's FOMC meeting minutes. It's not a meeting, it's just the minutes from the last meeting will be produced. And then Thursday, yeah, we got CPI. So could just be a little bit of funny business in and around that, with price just moving up and down in the ranges until we get a print on Thursday. But yeah, what I do like about this is obviously we've sort of let me go on a blank chart. I suppose this one. Ignore the you can, those are there. This is a 3-day chart again. Let's just put it on the daily just for a second. Ignore the white lines. But we've been in that downtrend, and we have, we can't deny the downtrend that we were in, kind of culminating in that move there. We had this, another lower high, and this one came in here, but this one actually just was a higher low. And then we've had that move up there, just a higher high. Now we've come back down. We don't know if this move is finished or not yet. So we kind of got to wait to see what happens. But at the moment, I don't think this will be the end of this move down. We could be argued that we've got another higher low. And so suddenly, because what do I want? I want 3 to prove that we got that trend reversal. Why does it appear on all my charts now? This is just frustrating. So that's what I'd be looking at. Now, to get to that, we've got to break through this trend line. So, the reality of that is, but right now, one higher low, another higher high, a second higher low. If this one sustains, we just need that move up there. Maybe Thursday's information can be the one to drive it through there. And I will concede, we break through that trend level and we make another higher high, trend's reversed. That 8-month trend is over. And so, yeah, that could possibly be where we're looking there. Now, the reality is that this could go let's just get rid of those. This could still fail here, even come down to like this level at 54, bounce back up, and still be forming a higher low. So unfortunately, there's plenty of wiggle room within that, but that's what I'd be looking at to start off with. So the groundwork's been laid, a higher low and a higher high, but we still need one more of each, 2 more, to really say that we're through that. So that's where I am with that one. Let's just get rid of all these. I want to just do this because this has felt like an incredibly long period. That 8-month period, however long it's been, has felt long, and it's been boring. But it's been nerve-wracking at the same time. We've made money, we've lost money, we've laughed, we've cried, we've wanted to give up, and we've wanted to remortgage the house at the same time. And it's felt almost unnatural as to just how long we have been in this holding pattern. But actually, have we really never seen something like this before? And, I really didn't want to use this word, but I won't. But we are in a month that's having some hyperbole used around it, and the opposite of down is being thrown in front of the oct bit. And you know, we are in a potential time frame, Q4, where we do see the turnarounds within years. I should have just said October instead of wasting 30 seconds there. But as you can see, that sort of period of just ranging in there. But I take you back to this time last year. So this time last year, we had a sort of a similar kind of September, October, where we had ups, we had downs, we were happy, we were sad, and then suddenly we were left behind, and we were generally sad or happy, whether you were in the market or out the market. But we kind of knew that we were the wrong way around. And people sort of talk about this as it was quite sudden. You know, the speed at which that happened, it just shot through, and then we went off because we had had a period of consolidation, price suppression, whatever it is you want to call it, that really held it down. And if you remember what happened from a news point of view, so we had all of this suppression, and all through that period, we had talk about whether or not ETFs were going to happen. This was the ETF discussion summer last year. Feels like a lifetime ago, but it was only 12 months. 18, I suppose, if you start at the beginning. And we had that kind of discussion. And then end of October, bang, we're going to do it. We got the confirmation that had been approved, and it was suddenly, boom, off to the races. And we had a news event which drove price up there. But show me the charts and I'll tell you the news. That's how we normally like to do things, isn't it? So I appreciate, let's go back on the 3-day, you know, try and fit both in so we can see them both. So we've got that there. This is loosely drawn, okay? But we kind of had that kind of there. Again, loosely drawn, give me a bit of leeway here, 3-day time frame. We kind of had this here as well. Again, loosely drawn, give me a bit of time frame. Kind of similar patterns though. Falling channels, which ultimately turned into a bullish run. Now, sheer coincidence, happens all the time. And I'm, you know, I accept that. But we have a look where we are now. 74 bars, okay? 74 bars. So 74 sets of 3 days, isn't it? 222 days. That's even better. It actually tells the amount of days. We go over to here, to where it broke out. 73 bars, 219. Okay, so we kind of talk about similar time frames here. So when people talk that we've been ranging in this pattern for so long, it's unnaturally long. We did this 12 months ago. We did this exact thing 12 months ago. Now, I accept there are differences because we did go up and we did go down and we did clear and make a new local high in and around there. I'm not trying to trace this as an exact copy, just to show you there is similarities in the time frame we spent of milling around over the summer waiting for something to happen. And what's going to happen at the end of November? End of October. We've got an election and we've got another opportunity for the FOMC to drop the rate, the federal rate. So there's an opportunity, and it's going to take, you know, another 18 or so days, no more than that, 20 odd days to get to November. So it's no longer going to be 220 days, it's going to be 240 days, I accept. But the point is that, you know, we're going to have a news event which could propel us to the way we're going. And, you know, if you go back to that polling mark, looks like suddenly Donald Trump has taken a big swing lead. Now, Trump is good for us. Kamala Harris, I don't know, 50-50. Most people say not good for us, but Trump would be good. I met with my financial advisors months ago, and they were calling it was going to be Trump that win it. That was when Biden was still in. I always think that the money people and the people who bet on stuff, they have a much better handle on where things are going because it's their money at hand. So the data that they can get to their fingertips and the sort of what they utilize to understand voting patterns, everything else, is probably far greater than just asking someone on the street. So the fact that we're leaning that way, still a lot to do, you know, 32 days or whatever Kamala got stuck on the teleprompter saying repeatedly. We've got about 30 days to the, actually we got 30 days to the results. It comes out on the 7th, the election's on the 6th, isn't it? That's 28 days, because I remember it's going to be on a Tuesday night. I'm going to stop waffling there. But yeah, so maybe that's what propels us forward. Hopefully so. Absolutely, hopefully so. But if you want to have a look at this another way, we go into glass nodes. I'm gonna cheat a little bit. First cycle, don't count. Second cycle, I'm not going to count either, just because it helps me. But look at this. So the black is the current cycle, the green was last cycle, and the blue is I call it the 2017 cycle. It's in the blow off top, yeah? But look at where we are now, and look at these periods. The last 3 cycles, we've done that sideways track for several months at exactly the same time, and then lo and behold, the green and the blue take off in the October month of that year, and up they fly. Okay, so this is playing out exactly how it's played out before, regardless of news events, regardless of ETFs, regardless of elections or anything else, or wars in Iran and Israel strikes and everything else. Price actions, I mean, obviously the price is different, but price action has played this tune twice before, matter of fact, in the last 2 cycles. And so, until it's broken, maybe we can continue to use this as some sort of recipe for where things may be going. And that's really got me focused in terms of like my risk appetite of, I said last month, I want to be back in the market for the beginning of October, and I generally was. I'm pretty much fully back in as of today, and so I feel like taking side steps now have to be really, really well thought out with some really low risk, high reward opportunities, because at any stage we could get that uptick that we've seen in the past 2 cycles, and I'm going to be left holding a big bag of, I shouldn't have done that. And so that's kind of where I sit with that. And I think the optimism that I take from this is we've seen this before. We've 2023, last year, we experienced that as well. So not just the point we are in 4-year cycles, but even last year we had that experience. Excuse me. And I remember last year because I'd done a little sidestep end of September, and I got back in October, and it was one of those ones where I wasn't even looking at the fact that ETFs could launch or whatever, and I just happened to be the right side of a coin flip that I happened to get back in. But I'd have been the wrong side of that, I would have, absolutely, well, I would have waited for the pullback that never came, and where those things sit if you didn't get back into Tau at 200. It's exactly the same kind of thing. So I'm not really wanting to take too many risks going forward on side steps at the moment. We'll potentially talk about the Tau one I mentioned earlier later, but just to be clear, I ain't sidestepping Tau right now. And so here we are with the 4-year cycle that I sort of throw around, and I've actually changed this. And for the eagle-eyed among you, you'll think that doesn't look right. It didn't line up, because previously these white lines would represent the 1st of January's, and I used to align the green boxes with the start of each year. So the 4-year cycle, those 4 phases that I talk about, a bear phase, consolidation phase, climb out phase, parabolic phase, just conveniently align those on the 1st of January. But the reality of it actually is, when you look at cycles, they should be aligned to November, end of November, because we've seen bull market tops 1st of December plus or minus 30 days for the last 3 cycles. So actually, I've moved those to the right and saying, well, where do we find ourselves? Well, we're 1 month away from the start of the parabolic phase. Now, just because I've drawn a green box over November doesn't mean that it's going to go parabolic next month. But this one could turn like this one did and climb out actually a little bit earlier. Of course they can. But the point is, as we get towards that parabolic phase, you've got to have a good reason. Yes, take advantage of dips if you have spare capital. Maybe if you can see a really overextended play, take a side step and try and get back in on the lows. But doing it on a whim because you feel like something's broken one support line, you may get left out there. And on a macro picture, we've had the boring times, which granted this one, because of COVID, crashed even further. If you take that spike away, very similar kind of pattern of the consolidation phase into the climb out phase, similar kind of time frame there. And so, I'm sort of really trying to reduce any of that kind of risk. I'm happy with the amount of funds I've put into the crypto market, and I'm kind of happy with how I've gone and rebalanced my portfolio to try and really take advantage of that. But I am expecting, should this play out the similar way, that we start to see that move up. And then, the real question is going to be, well, where's the end of it? Is it going to be November next year, or are we going to see it slightly to the left, slightly to the right? And we talked about that on the Cuddle presentation. And my personal opinion on that is how the overall economic markets react to the rate cuts. And by that, I mean, do we get a crash, but we recover quickly? Do we get a recession? Or do we just get money printed straight away and we keep on climbing? And unfortunately, we don't really know where that is. We just got to be prepared from it. But they will all impact that parabolic phase in one form or another. I don't know what I'm moving on to on this next one. Don't know why that one's there. Okay, maybe I do. I don't know why I drew this one, but what I can see here, ignore the red line. What is the red line? So this is the 50 EMA on the weekly, or the 50, sorry. What's the S stand for again? Why have my mind gone? Simple moving average. And I suppose the only thing I really take from this is those big dips down that we've seen, we have reacted quite nicely off that. So maybe we do see that move down. Maybe this candle does look what it does, but where does that take us? Probably around about 57,000. Could dip through, but what we really want to see is whether or not that candle can close above it. And so actually from where we are, we may only be talking around about 5% drop. Come on, we have lived through bigger drops than that as a group over the last 3 or 4 years. So if there is a 5% drop to go, I don't think that's particularly too hard to ride. Of course, some altcoins may suffer harder than that. But really, the worry for me is, I suppose, a break and a close below that, yeah, potentially. But a real close below 54,000, that's where I start to get worried, because we'd then be below this line and also closing lower than we've done before. Spike downs I'm not necessarily too worried about as long as they are recovered. But yeah, not sure what this one's for. We'll come back to that. ETFs, they're still buying. BlackRock's still buying. I mean, nearly 100 million's worth. In fact, they've only had one sell in the last 3 weeks. And generally, the good news is, well, Grayscale, they're not selling so much. So actually, some pretty hefty numbers here on the right-hand side. Just surprising that the price is not really reacting how you might think it is. But, you know, the fact of the matter is that the big boys, with all of the information to their fingertips, are still confident in Bitcoin. And so as long as they are, then we shouldn't really worry too much. Now, they ain't so confident in Ethereum. Yesterday, nobody bought Ethereum. And it's pretty slow on the uptakes. It's the occasional day where we get a little bit, but generally still very little enthusiasm towards Ethereum. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if that is just there's no uptake from institutional investors, or it's just not being pushed by those that are trying to sell it to institutional investors, and rather they're pushing BTC. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see and have a look at that. Generally, fear and greed at the moment, we're pretty neutral. I'm kind of happy with that. You know, no one's over panicking. No one's getting too excited. That's kind of the Goldilocks zone for me of where we need to be. And as long as we can stay there with price moving up or down, I don't think that's too much of an issue. With altcoins, excuse me, last week we were at 49. We've dropped back down to 33. And it's interesting. I'm sort of looking at this. So Sui and Tau, absolutely flying over here. We can see Bitcoin's the one in black. It's kind of dropping back down. But yeah, there's some there that just not been doing very well recently. Look at old DOT, down 33% in the last 90 days. So not doing so well. Link is another one. ETH, 22%. Maybe that's why there's not the uptake. But yeah, some of these other ones have been doing amazingly well. And thankfully for us, one of our bigger holds has been doing that. So I don't know, still not really plucked up the courage to delve deep into my portfolio tracker, because it's certainly not where it was March earlier this year. But yeah, we're making our ways there. One of the things that I started talking about on Discord a little bit, and I do want to talk about this a little bit more next month, is meme coins. I was blown away by one of the videos, and then I started looking into the data, and I just don't think you can deny the numbers that we're seeing here. So yeah, even in the past 7 days, so this is just meme coins that I follow. But look, you know, 25%, 27% there, 260%, couple nearly at 100%, 50% on 47, 30, 75, 150%, 140%. Now, some of them, as I've mentioned there, okay, reported market caps sub 50 million. But there's a lot here, most of them are over 100 million. Some of them are in the billions, and PopCap, that's the one I use as the example. So 7 days ago, not even 7 days, 4 days ago, it was below $1. Yesterday or 2 days ago, it was at 157. Back in February, this was at 0.0005. So you can have a look at the year to dates on this right hand side. 15,000, 4,000, 6,500. Some incredible climb ups there. And the point, I suppose, is that I've always kind of looked down on memes a little bit. And I think I've just really dropped the ball, but also failed to understand how powerful the meme is and how to sort of utilize those memes. And I'm just trying to educate myself on this, because I still think there's a lot of legs to run within memes. Memes and AI seem to be the way to go. But if you can find the right meme, I mean, I would argue that any of these in the top 400, they're almost 100 million plus, 200 million plus. Some of these, they obviously have communities that really buy into it. A lot of them, the circulating supply, I've gone into them. They're not like 20% circulating supply. They're over 90% circulating supply. So they're not getting dumped on or anything else like this. And so I do think there's a real opportunity to be had on memes. Maybe some of these ones, the ship has already sailed, but potentially there's others that you could look at. And I know a few of you are in Zappy and Taonu, and I can't remember what the other one's called. And so, yeah, maybe there is some potential there. I'm starting to try and understand how to identify some of these. And I will talk about it at the Cuddle next month, assuming Simon lets me. So I don't want to say too much now, but there's definitely some metrics, or there's a blueprint that you can take from the likes of PopCat and Mogcoin and SPX69 and GigaChad, and my absolute favorite Harry Potter, Obama, Sonic, Teninu, and its ticker is Bitcoin. I mean, these guys are just trying to milk everything they can from it. But there's obviously potential and a potential blueprint that you can take from those to try and identify maybe the next meme, or how you would like Taonu and Zappy to play, so you can identify whether or not that one's in the position, the right side of the meme categorization, to really grasp hold of a community and allow that community to take that to the masses. So yeah, I think there's something there, definitely. Right, let's have a look at some others, shorter time frames, etc. And then we'll knock it on the head. So here's Bitcoin daily. Got to learn how to get rid of this. Let's go on some sort of lower. Well, before we do, so, this is where I'm sort of at. We've got a range here over the last sort of 7 or 8 days. We've made that local top. We've come back down. The 200 and the 50 EMA have effectively provided some sort of cushion for that fall back down. But we are getting pushed down again by the 10 and the 20. And to me, it just feels at the moment, I'm sorry to say, like a potential dead cat bounce for another move back down. And I just don't know where that move could possibly be. 60,000, maybe some of these recovering vectors. I mean, you get one down as low as 55 on the daily. We go on some lower time frames, and that's going to be a change. But that's just where, unfortunately, I see it. And, some of these candles here forming that way. And that 3-day one is just looking barbaric in terms of, you don't want to be seeing that at the end of there. There's obviously some selling pressure in and around there, and there's not much buying that one up. But if we go on to some lower time frames, maybe down on the 4 hour, and see if we can get a better picture. I mean, all the EMAs are kind of bunching together at the moment, and that's where you can see over the last 4 or 5 candles, last 24 hours or so, we've really not had any movement from BTC. What I would say is there's still some room to be had up here, which is why it could just be some funny business happening, just suppressing the price, not just here, but across some of the other markets, until we await for the CPI data. And that CPI data, I can't see it, fumbling the bag and going massively up, although it will be able to factor in some of the interest rate drops. But the chances are that it's either going to be on forecast or below it. And so that's going to be taken very favorably because it's going to at least lead the market into believing that Powell has done the right thing. Bringing down the interest rates is not impacting inflation, and then opening the door for further drops. And we are expecting a rate drop come November the 8th. It's just, I think everyone originally thought it was going to be 50 basis points, and maybe now there's some potential for that to be around about 25, sorry. So yeah, maybe just a bit of funny business is happening over the next couple of days. And actually what you could then see on the CPI day is maybe we do have that move back up, that retest of that 66,000 to try and reclaim that vector zone. And you know what? If we had that move there, and then a little bit of a false move back down before that move up, well, I mean, I don't need to start the alphabet at A and work my way down, but you can kind of see what formation I'm thinking that is. And that's certainly for me a bullish scenario. Now, what would that rely on there? So that dead cat bounce I'm talking about would then need to be recovered at that 60k level, which we know is an 0.5 fib level, which we know is a psychological level, which we know there is liquidity in and around that level. So there's plenty of magnets to drag it to that level, and it being a psychological level, it being the 0.5, the fib, it's also a decent enough springboard to maybe see us move that way if the market likes what the data comes out at on Thursday. So for me, I'm sort of just sat on there waiting to see what's happened. Now, I actually sold my personal Bitcoin today. So I was moving it into Tau. I just had to have a bit of a realization that on looking at how much Bitcoin I have from the business side of things, it doesn't really seem like I don't own as much personal Bitcoin, and it could be better invested elsewhere. So look, I looked at it from the Bitcoin price rather than the dollar value. And I was talking about trying to do it in and around the end of September. And do you know what? When I sent it on Sunday night, it took 11 hours to register, which I couldn't believe. Gone are the days of 10 minutes, 11 hours. That was a nervous overnight for that to land. And then, I went and sold it there. And effectively, obviously, I had to sell it into dollars and then dollars into Tau. But the process was almost immediate that you could just take it off this Tau BTC chart. Now, it's showing strength, and someone could argue that I could have waited to get it down to maybe retest the 50 EMA. But ultimately, I'm just liking how Tau and BTC are playing out. And I should have done it earlier, but we can always live like that. And so just move that one across. Speaking of Tau, so where are we? I mean, let's go to higher time frame first, start on the 1 hour. So I'm sort of focused really on, we had this area of consolidation in and around here on the daily, and then yesterday and the day before we had that move up. But actually, and I don't think, I wonder if I can put it on. I saw someone talking about this. I didn't bother looking at it myself. But so we've had that move up, but actually volume is dropping off. So, that it looks like we may be getting some form of exhaustion as volume starts to taper away. Now, that is nothing on its own. I'm not necessarily worrying too much about that. But the reality is, over the last 7 days, volume has dropped, has disappeared off. And that's not surprising, given the strength of that run up there. It's likely that we would see that. And it's also likely that we would see people taking profits. Now, these people taking profits and then trying to rebuy in, I'm certain of it. We've seen those moves back down. But again, it's just respecting the 10 EMA, which it has done both above and below the line for months now. So maybe we see a bit more of a move back down here. But as I say, the level that I'm looking at, which was on the 3-day, was this 525 level. You could argue now actually on the daily, you could take that down to around about 500. A close below that would be a close below the 10, would be a close below the 20, causing some concern that maybe there's an opportunity for the 50 or the 200 to play as we recover those. But right now, I'm just going to play it safe, sit on what I've got, and just wait, watch, and observe. As I say, from a dollar value, I bought some today, pretty much around what the price would be. So yeah, you could argue that that falling down there is a bit more painful, but it was bought with Bitcoin. So you got to kind of take that a little bit different. Let's move on to some lower time frames. You should see, again, we do have some form of M formation here, but you know, it's also just so bunched. I mean, this is what, 640 down to $630 kind of range. And it's just respecting those quite nicely, and it's still sticking above that 10 EMA. So, you know, that is not out of the woods for me. And then I move up that way. Interesting, someone put in Discord that you know, one, BitTensor was, you know, being talked about, presented on the screens at Google, and two, the co-founder of YouTube is sort of going around Twitter liking BitTensor tweets at the moment as well. So, you know, there's obviously some people that are coming on board and liking it. My real kind of concern with that is sometimes big tech get involved just to destroy something they know is a competitor. So let's hope that's not the case. But yeah, you know, all looking very good. Mine's back staked. I mean, it's probably last 7 days just not had it staked at all, which is a complete waste. But we are where we are, unfortunately, with that one. Casper, again, not looking great right now, I have to say. And, you know, the straw that broke the camel's back a couple of days ago probably was RT selling some of their Casper on the announcement that Simon was going to as well. But since then, I mean, you know, you can argue whether or not it was just a mass selling at a particularly short time period or whatever. Look at this, you know, we were fighting, holding on to the 800 EMA as soon as we lost it. It's gone down. Yeah, we've tried to recover, but this one, precursor to potentially what Bitcoin's going to do with a dead cat bounce following down, but, you know, beautifully holding the 10 EMA there, not even getting anywhere close to the 50 EMA. Levels that we really could be looking at. Unfortunately, I think this spike here at 12.5 is probably where I'd be sort of looking. I say that because we got a bit of price action here as well. I don't want to draw a fib too soon because we don't know that this drop is done. But let's just assume that it was. I mean, again, it's come down, it's hit off these ones nicely, come back down. Even that spike up there has kind of suggested where it'd go. And then, you know, it's anyone's game when you're forecasting these, but just so happens 414 sits nicely on top of that, you know, unclaimed vector candle down at sort of 12 cents, a little bit lower than where that is. But I'd say I've got my Casper. What's left of it, I'm just going to keep and just see where it goes with that one. Sometimes you just got to accept you need to ride a horse down a little bit to benefit from any move back up. One that I do want to talk about is, you know, DOT. It just cannot seem to get a break, except for breaking my heart. And it really is just not doing very well at the moment. And the reality of it is, as much as I love Polkadot, this is where it was, you know, the lows of the bear market. So here, you know, December 22, we have this bear market lows and we're still there. There's a lot of altcoins that are kind of like this one, don't get me wrong. But it is just not doing well. And there's definitely some thought. I mean, I was unstaking everything anyway. You know, I've sold 50%. I sold that back a few months ago. I was unstaking the rest just in case I needed to get out of everything quick. And this has the longest unstaking period of 28 days. So I just thought holding the rewards or gaining the rewards wasn't worth it. But when that comes free, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. But yeah, we'll wait and see where that one sits. Near and render I've kept. And then these are just, as I say, you know, these are some of the meme coins I talked about earlier. I mean, you know, Bitcoin, that Harry Potter, whatever, it's up 55% today. Some of them make some really impressive moves, and it's hard not to sort of just see those and just think, oh, what if? So where do I currently sit with the rest of my portfolio at the moment? So the business still remains the same at 100% BTC. I actually don't think my buy order got hit on whenever it was, sometime last week. The reason I say that is because I was trying to buy it in pounds. That's what I do. And just the exchange rate, it missed by a couple of £100. So that one's still going. Around about 47,000, I think, 46,100, something like that. So maybe a little bit of a move down might take that. Otherwise, I'd have to buy it. But yeah, every week, every month, still buying. And then the personal side of things, the Tau's almost 50% of my portfolio at the moment. Near's at 25. Dot's dropped down to sub 9. That's mainly because Tau has been doing so well. It's just taking up more of a share there. Kaz, Render, and then all of the other ones that are just grouped together. I've just put others now because otherwise they're just tiny little lines. But yeah, that's kind of where we sit with everything, and that's where we are. What time is it? 9:05. I think that's probably kind of it. Oh no. That's not it. Dominance. Bitcoin dominance. It just cannot die, can it? And potentially rightly so. But it is, it had that pullback down to 57, the 50 EMA, and it immediately kicked off it. So back up. So this was this drop down from 58 down to here, which is what spiked alt season on that previous chart up to 49%. But since then, 50 EMA recovered and we got that move up. And, I can just continue to see that move because even if the October thing happens, Bitcoin's the one that's going to move. And so it's going to keep on climbing. Yes, there will be outliers like Tau that may outperform it as well. But against the majority of the market, I still see Bitcoin flying up. And okay, we're in that area where maybe we've already just touched it. But, that's 61%. I don't think it's something to necessarily sniff at. So any of you that are still holding Bitcoin, there's still potential to keep on holding it. The argument of why did you sell your Bitcoin now, Harry, was because Tau was actually still outperforming Bitcoin. If I was going to move that Bitcoin into another altcoin, then yeah, potentially hold on to it until Bitcoin dominance keeps on climbing. You look as an example, you look at DOT. Oops. You would have kept your Bitcoin if you were going to put it into DOT because it's just falling and there's no reason why that's changing. Same with ETH. Kaz is falling at the moment. So, if it was going to be put into Kaz, you may want to hold on to it because, not only is this one here falling, it's, we're just starting to print the 200 EMA, but it's broken below that. These are fanning out nicely. This feels like this has got a bit more of a room to run and similar. Okay, it's got a bit of a double bottom, but generally still on the downtrend, lower highs. So I was wanting to always move that into Tau, but Tau, unfortunately, is leaving Bitcoin behind. And so it's just a case of, well, you got to get into it at some stage. So that's where I moved it there. But Bitcoin dominance is still looking very strong. And yeah, I can't believe, we go back 2 years and I was sort of talking about 40, breaking 45, 50 would be unheard of. And here we are pretty much accepting that before the end of the year, it's probably going to hit at least 60. And that just shows it. But, the higher it goes, just the more extreme the alt season will be because, this will keep on climbing as market cap keeps on climbing as well. Overall total market cap will keep on climbing. And then as this moves down, yes, I appreciate there are instances where Bitcoin price can drop and altcoins can drop and still Bitcoin dominance can drop. But generally that switch and that flow from Bitcoin to altcoins, and it might not be via ETH, it might be another way, but the market cap, the overall market cap is going to be there, so that money that can then move into altcoins could be pretty monumental. And so yeah, now's not the time to make wholesale changes to what it is that you're wanting to do. If you're confident in the altcoins that you currently hold, then fair enough, go with it. Things like Link and that, which I have got rid of, just because I was like, well, what's got better chance of outperforming things right now? And just where I saw Link, and I might live to regret that one with Link, but just going with a different mindset there. So that's kind of where that sits. I feel I'm just rabbiting on a little bit. I don't think there's been any other real questions. Adam's put good news about Detour subnet. Yeah, it is. I am now become super lazy. If it's not on subnet alpha, then I don't know about it. Where are we? I mean, I'm trying to see if there's any. Oh, there we go. 22. But yeah, there's some really good stuff that's sort of coming out here, and I think what Lewis and I suppose Simon, I know Lewis has put in most of the work into this. It's really good, and it's kind of got to the point now where I kind of just believe what's on here and hope that Lewis has done his research correctly. So yeah, I will. I've seen you say try a Tau Pill. It's a good website for referencing. I will definitely check that one out. Jared's put better late than never. It is. You might have to hit rewind though, because I think we're going to be wrapping this up now, Jared. But Greg's put the cuddle. You had an interesting interest rate chart showing money supply too. What's the ticker for money supply? So that was. So it was the balance sheet. So it was Wall CL. This one here. If this is the one you're talking about. Federal Reserve, it's balance sheet asset totals. So this is just them balancing everything out. So it's not money supply, it's in M2, because obviously that's in 20. I was going to do 22 trillion. I think it's more than that these days. But this was just a sort of a visual representation of quantitative easing, quantitative tightening. But I will send you this and the description of exactly how this has worked out, so that you could understand what it is that ultimately you are looking at. But yeah, it was good for just overlaying on everything else. So it's Wall CL, which is a balance sheet assets, total assets, less the limitations from consolidation, and that's where it is. But on the wider time frames, it gives a fairly good indication of periods of quantitative easing and quantitative tightening, which actually, whilst we're talking about that, I couldn't help myself. I feel it's been probably 3 months since we got on it. Every 100 days, we know it's an extra trillion that goes on. And look at this, national debt, 35.6 trillion. So yeah, scary times there. But anyway. Right, sorry, Jared, but I promise you I was wrapping it up anyway. So that kind of is where we are with that one. It's about an hour and 10 minutes. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Obviously, there's a trading pub on Thursday. Can't think what else is coming up. I feel like you can book your tickets now for the next cuddle. Adam, I will put the YouTube video. Matter of fact, for starters, I'll stick it here, but I'll also put it in chat. So this is it. It starts at 23 minutes. So I'll just put it here. Start from 23 minutes. The actual presentation is about 20 minutes, and then there's about another 25 minutes of questions. But it's definitely worth it. Going back to, so the Christmas cuddle, it's end of November. I know it is being offered to external members as well, but obviously it's free from yourself. So if you do want to go, if you can make it, these ones are a lot of fun. I think there's a lot of effort that goes into these ones. It's kind of like our annual get together. So please do come along, book a room, get drunk, challenge Simon to random events because he's super competitive. And yeah, we'll see you from there. Other than that, I'll speak to you all on Thursday. Damn it, I forgot to mention. I'll bring it up next week. Doesn't matter. I don't want to detract from it. So I'll see you all. I'll speak to you all on Thursday. If you have anything, whether it be you're down in the dumps, you're super greedy at the moment, you've had a problem from a security point of view, or you just want to have a chat, feel free to drop me a message. I've actually been doing like Discord calls with people this week. Not advertising, just people have asked if they can have a chat. It's been really interesting just hearing other people's sides of every story. So if you do feel that you need to reach out, you just want to ask a question, tag me in something, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Speak to you all Thursday, and cheers now.